Now, what's cool about this, and this is my favorite thing. Actually, I'm gonna say my favorite thing like 10 times. Sorry. It's like having 5 points, but you only think of 4. When you change the exposure, guess what? It doesn't blow out the highlights. So subject-aware exposure. That's actually patented tech. It's pretty cool. Sorry, I really like it. I'm like, thank you for understanding that we did not want to destroy the integrity of our photo. And this is a really good example of this. So this is not my photo. If you guys know the landscape photographer Albert Dross, he's one of my oldest friends. So every time I see him, I take his hard drive for a little while. Albert, I'm using this image. Okay, it's fine. Use it. But here's the before image. So what's fun is when we really understand how to train AI, we can not only train it to not worry about changing color, understanding that subject color is different than cast light, but then we can quickly go from this to this with one slider. So now think about doing this in any other develop module, right? So this is the key to saying, okay, developing is not editing. Editing is your style, right? We normalize something and then we make the change. So Radiant Photo's job is to make images look good so you can make them great. And the reason it's faster is because we very quickly can go from this to this. This is the default. I just opened this image. This image too. So if I zoom in here, it's actually really interesting. So this is a pretty, I say pretty typical, it's an amazing shot. But you see how it's a little bit blown out here? Radiant Photo just cleans it up. Like, so it's just as important that software does change the image, but it's equally or more than important of what it doesn't do, right? So if you have, let's say, a slider that's 100% and everything's almost perfectly exposed, nothing really happens. So the best compliment when people say, oh, it hardly did anything, we're like, good, right? That's good, because that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to not change things, right? It's supposed to understand different colors and different elements, and also preserve color separation and different things like that. I did take this photo. I know it's weird that there's a person in it. And again, it knows when you change the exposure that you're not intending to blow out the background. It understands that when we're talking about contrast and depth, we're not trying to blow different things out. So very quick. And that's really the foundation of how it works. And it's also able to edit here to here while prioritizing and maintaining every single color separately. So here, this is obviously a lot of bounce light, but we can mitigate that right away. So it just removes the cast light on the face around everything and lets all the colors work out. These are actually stock images from Adobe, the free ones, because we're a startup, right? But so it knows what colors should be, but more importantly, it knows what the colors already were, right? So sometimes it's startling when you enhance an image because you think it's messing with the color, but when you look at the before image, you realize that, oh wow, no, that was the actual color that was in the scene. So being able to maintain the structure of color throughout an editing process is only in Radiant Photo. If you start changing exposure and different things in any other application, everything starts turning gray or white, right? So that's believe it or not, this AI that we're using is 20 years old. I don't remember it. It's like my grandfather's AI, right? Like I know that was like a recent thing. So 20 years of color science for this in the print industry. And I can just roll through some of these. It's so fast. But what I'm really, really proud of, and this was a recent update on our version 1.3. 1.4 just came out the other day too, is this is already a really nice natural light image, right? But by default in Radiant Photo, it prioritizes the skin tone and cleans up the scene. There are other things that it's able to do, which are really interesting. It's just giving dimension to something, before and after. And I haven't made any changes to this. But I asked one of my friends, who's an amazing photographer, to give me challenging images. Like, I want something that you think it's impossible to edit. So he sent me this. I mean, it's a crazy outfit. So we have every color here. Well, what happens if we're just trying to change exposure now with all of that calculation? So this is the fun part. So we get a lot of questions about radiant photo, and there are questions like, why don't we have masking? And my answer, if I really want to be sarcastic, is why would you need it? So if you were to mask an image like this, and I love the masking system in Photoshop and Lightroom, it is a game changer, right? Being able to do this. If I make a selection of the horse, will that selection cover all the anti-aliasing there? Will it be able to also correct these little spots of dust and specks of dirt? No. So we are now celebrating 2 years of Radiant Photo being available in September, October. 3.5 years I've been working on this project, and it became an obsession, but it's really fun. Because what we're actually doing and what we advertise is what it actually does. So the biggest compliment that we get is, wow, it does what it says it does. Okay? What other software do we have out there that does exactly what it says it'll do? Not much, actually. So maybe it hurts our marketing. We don't make fake before and afters. We try to make something that we hope is useful for people. So whether you use it as a plugin in Photoshop, a plugin in Lightroom, a standalone application, if you use it on your iPhone before you send all your images to your mom, because that's what I do. Instead of having to pick the one photo of the 50 burst shots of my daughter, I'm like, let's just batch process them real quick through Radiant Photo and then choose. It does all of those things. So that's why I'm most excited about this. I never expected to do this, but as we started progressing, we started teaching, we started seeing product development, where things were going, to me, this started to make sense. Because there was a point with software I just had to question why. And why are we doing this the same way over and over again? Is it because it's the best way to do it, or we're just used to it? So the develop panel, 15 years, we've been doing that. That's a pretty good run. So yeah, that's pretty cool, right? So I made this a little longer than I meant to, but the main feature is that it's easy, and it's designed for professional photographers, but it's also designed. See how good that was? I just closed my presentation. I was like, I'm gonna end on the best slide ever. So can you guys switch back to the best slide ever? So yeah, thanks for coming. It's one of those really interesting things, and we're at a point now with the version that we have. I spent the last month in talking to engineers, to development, to all of the different people. We don't have investors, but we do have partners, and listing every single feature that we're going to have in version 2 when that's coming out. And last week, after weeks and weeks of actually having to be an executive on these calls to get all this done, we have final sign-off. So in August, you're going to see some of the next features that are going to be evolved features. And there are a few things that we're doing that I can't talk about yet, because there are a couple companies that like to just say they're doing exactly what we're doing. On one, whoops, they copy all the marketing. Sorry, On one, great software, same marketing. We're making it even easier, more accessible. We're currently training the AI to recognize more scenes, to be able to detect different types of birds, different types of people and portraits, and we're able to refine these results. So imagine if the AI could detect if it was a mountain scene, if it was a cityscape during the day, at night, and we could route it through the settings so that starting or finish point was perfectly accurate. And then imagine where you could fully customize it and make it the default for every image that you do. So this is what we're working on. And basically, after spending 10 years selling photography education, I am making myself obsolete. Because all of those things, we say frequency separation, luminosity masking, all of those complicated things that we've learned, Yes, it does all that stuff, but it doesn't. You don't have to know, right? Like we have to know. You just say, "Oh, the exposure's right," and that feels good. Well, thanks everybody. Enjoy your time here. If you have any questions, there are plenty of people who are smarter than me here that can answer them.